What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I have another video exposing one of the biggest lies in NBA history. And this time, the lie we're going to be exposing is the notion that LeBron James is not clutch. Now, if you've watched the NBA for over a decade and followed the sport very closely, you know there is one person who really pushes the narrative that LeBron isn't clutch, and that person is none other than Skip Bayless. And this narrative by Skip, it really gained a lot of momentum after the 2011 finals, where LeBron James had what I think is the biggest meltdown ever by a superstar in finals history. And since that series, Skip has doubled and tripled down on the notion that LeBron James is not clutch. And one of my main problems with Skip is that when he argues LeBron isn't clutch, he never brings any facts, any numbers, or any data to back up his points.
LeBron James, as great as he is, as gifted as he is, was not born with a clutch gene. I am sorry to say it, but it proved me right once again.
And while I agree that basketball definitely has intangibles that can't be measured by stats, I do think being clutch is something that you can gauge and understand how good a player is in the clutch time situations by looking at the numbers. And for me, there's three different things I look at when seeing how clutch a player is. The first thing is the clutch stats. The second thing is the big game numbers, the elimination games, the game sevens. And the third thing is the late game shots with 24 or 10 seconds left in the game. So I'm going to be using those three metrics to show you guys that LeBron James, he is definitely clutch, and Skip Bayless is borderline senile. So the first thing we're going to look at is LeBron James' clutch time scoring numbers. And clutch stats, they're the last 5 minutes of a game with a score within 5 points. And when looking at LeBron's clutch time numbers, they are definitely impressive. And one thing I want to point out is that little red asterisk that points out seasons where LeBron was top 5 in clutch time points per game or total clutch time points. And as you can see, LeBron, he had some pretty impressive streaks. As from the 05-06 season all the way to the 09-10 season, LeBron was top 5 in clutch time scoring. And also from the 2012-2013 season all the way to the 2015-2016 season, LeBron was also top 5 in clutch time scoring. And for his career, he was top 5 in clutch time scoring 10 out of 17 seasons. And overall, LeBron has 2,347 clutch time points for an average of 3.7 points per game on 46.3% shooting. So right there, that's definitely some impressive clutch time stats. But now, let's look at the playoff clutch stats. And once again, LeBron has a long streak from the 05-06 season all the way to the 2012-13 season, being top 5 in playoff clutch scoring. And in LeBron's career, he's made the playoffs 14 times. And 11 times, LeBron, he was top 5 in playoff clutch time scoring. And in total, LeBron had 467 clutch time points for an average of 3.5 points per game on 40.7% shooting from the field. Now, those numbers I just showed you on their own should be impressive, but I think to really gauge how impressive those numbers are, we have to compare them to the other modern superstars of the NBA. So when looking at the playoff clutch time scoring, let's see how LeBron stacks up versus the competition. Steph Curry in the clutch averaged 3.4 points per game on 37.4% shooting. Kevin Durant averaged 3.1 points per game on 41.5% shooting. Kawhi also averaged 3.1 points per game on 44.5% shooting. James Harden averaged 2.8 points per game on 38.9% shooting, and Giannis averaged 2.3 points per game on 53.8% shooting. So LeBron versus the modern superstars of this era has the highest career points per game average in the clutch while shooting 40.7% of the field, which relative to the other players is definitely an impressive number. And one thing I do want to look at is LeBron's clutch time scoring compared to other NBA legends. So Jordan in the clutch averaged 5.2 points per game on 47.2% shooting. LeBron, as we already know, averaged 3.5 points per game on 40.7% shooting. Kobe averaged just under LeBron in both points per game as well as field goal percentage. Shaq only averaged 2.1 points per game on 53.5% shooting, and Tim Duncan also averaged 2.1 points per game on 46.5% shooting. So when looking at the best superstars of the last 20 to 25 years, LeBron, I would say, stacks up very nicely, and I think him and Kobe, their clutch time numbers are basically identical, and the other guys like Shaq, Duncan, and Jordan, they are more efficient, but Shaq and Duncan score nearly a point and a half less, and Jordan, he's on a whole nother level, averaging just over 5 points per game in the clutch. So moving on from the playoff clutch time numbers, let's look at LeBron in the NBA Finals. And like I said earlier in the video, LeBron early in his career, he was an awful Finals performer, especially in the clutch, as in his first two Finals appearances in 2007 and 2011, he averaged 1.3 points per game in the clutch on a terrible 20% shooting. And in the 2011 Finals, he was absolutely abysmal, having 0 clutch time points on 0-for-7 shooting. But to LeBron's credit, since those two Finals, he has definitely improved his clutch time numbers, as now he averages 3.6 points per game on 33.3% shooting. And once again, if you compare those clutch time numbers to the other modern superstars, LeBron definitely sits in the middle of the pack, averaging 3.0 points per game, slightly ahead of Steph, and just behind Kevin Durant. And one of the things that really stands out in this graphic is that LeBron is the only sub 40% shooter. And like every player in NBA history, nobody is perfect, and I think being clutch in the finals has definitely been a weak point in LeBron's career. And if you take it a little bit further and compare those same numbers to the NBA legends, LeBron, he falls a little bit farther down the list, as he has the 4th highest points per game average and the lowest field goal percentage in the clutch. And once again, I want to point out how Michael Jordan is head and shoulders above everyone else, and Kobe is actually very efficient in the NBA Finals when it comes to the clutch time scoring. So moving on from that, next up, I want to look at how LeBron performs in the big time crucial games. And the first stat we're going to look at is LeBron's elimination game stats. And for his career, LeBron has played in 24 elimination games and has a record of 14-10. And in those games, he is averaging a ridiculous 33.7 points per game, the highest in NBA history, 10.8 boards, 7.5 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.0 block, while shooting 49.1% from the field. And those numbers in elimination games is no doubt impressive, but I would argue that Game 7s are by far the most crucial games and the most clutch games a player can have. And LeBron in Game 7s for his career has a record of 6-2, and in those games, he is averaging 34.9 points per game, the highest in NBA history, 9.8 boards, and 5.6 assists. And if you look at his Game 7 game log, he's really never had a horrific Game 7 performance. And that's definitely something important and something that Skip Bayless never wants to point out. And one other thing that Skip will never point out is how LeBron has had numerous clutch time performances in the playoffs. The first one I want to look at is in the 2006 playoffs, and this was LeBron's first ever playoff series versus the Washington Wizards. And in Game 5 of this series, LeBron had 45 points, 7 boards, 6 assists on 60.9% shooting, and he had the game-winning layup. In the 2007 Eastern Conference Finals versus the Detroit Pistons, LeBron had 48 points, 9 boards, 7 assists on 54.5% shooting, and he scored the last 25 points for the Cleveland Cavaliers. In 2008, in a Game 7 in the Boston Garden, LeBron had 45 points, 5 boards, 6 assists on 48.3% shooting. In the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals versus the Orlando Magic in Game 2, LeBron had 35 points, 4 boards, 5 assists on 52.2% shooting, and he had the game-winning buzzer beater. In 2012, down 2-1 to the Indiana Pacers, LeBron had 40 points, 18 boards, 9 assists on 51.9% shooting. In Game 6 of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, down 3-2 to versus the Boston Celtics, LeBron had 45 points, 15 boards, 5 assists on 73.1% shooting. In 2013 in Game 6 versus the Spurs, LeBron had 32 points, 10 boards, 11 assists on 42.3% shooting, and he had 16 points in the fourth quarter. And in the Game 7 of that series, LeBron had 37 points, 12 boards, 4 assists on 52.2% shooting, and that 37 points is the most in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So that right there was a laundry list of LeBron's great clutch time games. But in my opinion, the best clutch games of his career came in the 2016 Finals as his Cleveland Cavaliers went down 3-1 versus the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. And in the last 3 games of this series, LeBron would average a ridiculous 36.3 points per game, 11.7 boards, and 9.7 assists. And the last thing I want to look at for these big time games is how LeBron performed in the 2018 playoffs in the elimination games. And it was by far one of the most impressive runs in NBA history, as during this postseason run, LeBron averaged 37.3 points per game, 10.3 boards, and 8.3 assists in those elimination games. So I think all that shows you guys LeBron definitely shows up more times than not on the big stage when his teammates and his team needs him to have a big time clutch performance. Now moving on, the last thing I want to show you guys is the playoff clutch time shooting. And for me personally, this is definitely an important factor as it shows which player is the best late game winning shooter. And the first thing I want to show you guys is the stats in the playoffs on go ahead or game time shots in the final 24 seconds. So LeBron in those situations shoots 10 for 28 on 35.7% shooting. Kevin Durant shoots 5 for 20 at 25%. Curry shoots 4 for 15 at 26.7%. Kawhi shoots 3 for 6 at 50%. Harden is 1 for 12 at 8.3%. And Giannis is 1 for 1 at 100%. So LeBron out of this whole group, he by far has the highest volume. And I think one outlier that we can throw out is Giannis, as his volume is not nearly big enough to evaluate him on these clutch time shots. And I think the same thing can be said for Kawhi, as their sample sizes are definitely not big enough to compare to the other big time clutch shooters. But even with that being said, LeBron still has the most makes out of this entire group, while shooting 35.7% of the field, which relative to the other players is definitely a very, very impressive number. Now, if you want to narrow that scope and look at just the last 10 seconds, LeBron is 9 for 23 at 39.1%, Kawhi is 2 for 5 at 40%, Steph is 2 for 10 at 20%, KD is 2 for 13 at 15.4%, Harden is 1 for 9 at 11.1%, and Giannis is 1 for 1 at 100%. So basically the same thing goes. LeBron has the most made field goals on this entire list, while shooting just below 40%, which relative to the other players is definitely at the top of the best late game clutch time shooters. So that right there was the last graphic we're going to take a look at, and I hope in this video I did prove to you guys LeBron, relative to the other superstars in his era, as well as the other NBA legends, he is definitely a good clutch time player. And one thing I want to say really quick is that, like Skip Bayless, I don't think LeBron is the worst clutch time player in NBA history, but on the flip side of that, I also don't think he is the best clutch time performer, as there are definitely some weak points and some down moments in LeBron's career that hold him back from me giving him that title. And saying that is not an insult to LeBron James. That's just what I feel like from looking at all the data and all the numbers and comparing it to the modern superstars as well as a few NBA legends. So that is all I have to say in this video. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you realize that Skip Bayless, he is 100% a troll, and he's not meant to be taken seriously. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.